We're back for another episode of Competitive Edge here exclusively on Esports Bet, the industry's leading crypto odds matrix. Did you know, to celebrate the Lunar New Year over in Asia, Esports Bet is running their own red letter envelope frenzy, where basically if you deposit 100 USDT, you can receive an extra 100 USDT, 100,000 in ESC, so the esports coins that you can use to make bets and predictions, and also once you get to a certain level, convert into USDT. You also, if you're a League of Legends fan, I know this is a CS podcast, but if you are a League One, you can take advantage of this. You also get a risk-free bonus quota on any Tier 1 League of Legends spring game, so basically guaranteed cash back. You can actually check out, by the way, the episodes that we do on this channel, me and Monte Cristo, for League of Legends, if you want to take advantage of that. If not, don't worry about it, just do CS. Obviously, the key point on this particular one is this is actually one where any account can do this. You obviously have the usual turnover requirements. Check out the website for more details. The key thing to note is, though, as you can see on my screen, this isn't one that just automatically gets activated. What you have to do is you have to go to the promotions page, pick this red envelope frenzy, and as you can see on my screen there, it says apply the bonus. It's got a little tick. If you have any questions or you want to know more about the terms and conditions, just click the contact CS. That means contact customer support. Esports Bet will help you out with all the rest. Right, so Maui, obviously we did the first one of these, because I used to do it with Semler back in the day, for the IEM Katowice quarterfinals, if people remember. And then obviously Katowice is over now, because then every single day there was matches. So what we did was the two matches was Falcons against ENPRS, which was obviously like Snappy in the old ENPRS court against Glaive and whatever that 9 team is. That bizarrely was an interesting matchup. And then the other one was obviously FaZe against G2, a classic, Nico against Karrigan. What happened was, if you remember, we picked to go on G2's side for the G2 FaZe one, because to be fair, those games usually are a coin flip, and G2 had the bigger odds. Obviously, that did not end up happening. FaZe Clan won that one. Any brief thoughts on that one? Like, are you kind of surprised how easy it was for FaZe?
For FaZe, yeah. I guess I think with that matchup between FaZe and G2, it just feels like, well, one thing is like, I don't really feel too bad about that bet, because I feel like there was a chance, especially with the patch coming out in the night before the matchup itself. It felt like there was a little bit more likelihood that the underdog, being G2, would actually come out on top of that one. And then also I feel like, yeah, I mean, the match itself, though, it didn't really feel like that mattered too much, in all honesty. But I would still be willing to make underdog predictions on teams that I know have tons of talent, which G2 does, and then the game is literally changing. It just leads to greater variance.
I would also just say, I actually think that the G2 lineup, even though it's only one player change, they clearly are not in top form. Like you see, basically it's only Nico and Modesty pretty much carry at the moment. And actually, people like Hunter, who have been top 20 players the last few years, they've dropped off a cliff. So I don't actually even necessarily blame that one. I actually think in a few months, that one probably will be one where G2 can win. Okay, so obviously you can't win every coin flip one. Then on the other side, we did actually take Falcons as the favourite to beat ENPRS. I will say, there was a world with like 2 rounds from us being wrong on that one. Obviously, yeah. There is a universe where ENPRS could have pulled it out, but I actually think, despite the fact the rest of Katowice did not in fact turn out to be an experience wins the tournament competition, this one match was just this one here. It was only this one, it turned out. The joke is, in the very next match I would have picked Falcons again, but luckily we didn't have a competitive edge for that one, so we did not get that one wrong. So we won the Falcons one, we lost the G2 one, but again, if you're looking at how we're betting based on the odds, I think that's totally fine. I think actually Falcons was a fairly comfortable favourite. Meanwhile, we were going for the gamble on the underdog. We knew that we were on the underdog, but that's the nice odds. So for this one, we are going to be doing the PGL RMR, European RMR, which obviously people will remember for years now has been split into 2 different ones. You have a Group A and a Group B. So obviously it's a Swiss system with 16 teams in each of the groups. So we're just doing the first round matchups. So we've got 8 matchups for you. These are all the ones that are taking place. And as you can see on your screen here, we've picked out 4 different bets that we're going to make. And then aside from that, we'll also run down all the bets in the tournament and tell you what we think of them, so you can get our kind of like inside edge. Right, so for our first matchup, we have Virtus.pro, who technically, some of them did win a major, against SAW, which if people don't remember, is that like Portuguese team, right? The surprising one here is they actually would expect, you'd think VP would be like 1.1 odds or something. It's actually, if people don't know, for favourites, I tend to, like my cut-off's usually about 1.4. I'm amazed VP's down at 1.33. That's actually almost on the line for me. Do you think there's upset potential? Can SAW upset them? Is this one you're a bit scared of?
Recent form for SAW would indicate no, but I think that maybe this line is a little bit closer than you'd expect, just because this is the matchup that in the other RMR, for I think it was the Antwerp Major RMR. This was when VP actually went to overtime against Saw, and
Oh,
they
right.
had that crazy round where James had to got a defuse with point. Literally, Kicker told me after the game that the game said the bomb was defused with 0.0000 seconds
Right.
left.
So you think maybe
So
someone's thinking of that and thinking that it means that Saw might have some like comfort level in the match or something? Right.
y-
Okay.
yeah, maybe, but like that's like 2 years ago,
It
so I don't
is. It
really think that's
is.
relevant.
I want it. We'll skip
But
this one
yeah,
then. We'll skip that one. Similarly, I'm
yeah.
guessing like there's no reason to pick 9 pandas and phase is too low for this one, right? Phase is incredibly small odds for this next one.
Yeah, no, this one's just like so phase 9 pandas is just so lopsided, and 9 pandas has actually been okay online, but like versus phase, it's just one of those things where I just really don't see phase lose these kinds of things in RMRs. When you get to the major, I've seen phase lose to underdogs in stupid ways, but not here. Not this too early.
And then I feel like this next one, we're just doing a community service like job right now, which is if you don't watch Tier 1 CS, you might actually get tricked and go, wait a minute, G2 against Into the Breach. I love Into the Breach. Well, spoiler, Cypher and Volt, the best 2 players, aren't on Into the Breach anymore. So that's also a trap on, right? Like it's just name value tricking you to think that one's like essentially, look, I don't think even people in the UKC would pick the 4 odds for that one. Like I feel like that's like a miracle one you're trying to hit there. So we're skipping that one. Navi against Koi. Like, I'll admit I don't really know much about Koi, to be honest. So, I mean, this is another one I'm feeling we're just dodging, right?
Right. I've watched a little bit of Koi in the open qualifiers. They're kind of like the super team, like in air quotes, super team of what the leftovers of Movistar,
Right.
and what was the Portuguese team that they were? Saw. I think it was Saw
All right, did
actually.
they merge them together? I see,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Okay.
They merged some of the players, and I mean, they've been okay. Like they have Mopaz, which always kind of gives them X factor potential, but I mean, Navi's just been such a comprehensively solid
Yes.
team that I haven't been really. I've never really been too unsure of them.
What I would tell people is this, even though you might think in your brain, still like, Navi, they haven't really got it together. Just look at who they're losing to, guys. They only tend to lose at the moment, the actual best teams. So they have actually leveled up. But obviously this isn't the game to bet on too low for them. Then we get to the ones where you'll see, obviously earlier we had them on screen. These are the ones we're interested in. So Eternal Fire against NiP, right? Obviously my opening question here is, how do we end up in a world where Eternal Fire is a heavy favourite? And NiP, guys, the one with Config and those guys, they are a massive underdog. They're all the way up 2.7 on a BO1, right? I'm guessing we're taking NiP, aren't we?
So the thing is, I actually really think Eternal Fire is a good team right now. I actually thought the odds would be a little bit closer on this one. I think I'm one of the few people that's shilling Eternal Fire. I just feel like they're a team, when you look at their recent results, they only actually pretty much have lost in the last 10 weeks to teams that are top 5 team or top 10 teams. So they've been wildly consistent for me, actually. Like, they beat Falcons in a BO3. They beat BetBoom 13-1. They beat Maus in a BO3. The only teams they've lost to lately have been Navi, FaZe, and Monty over the course of, like, 8 or 10 series. So I thought these odds would actually be a little bit closer. But, man, it is so lopsided, actually, that NiP, I only see that their trajectory could go up from here. And the thing is that for the most part recently, we just haven't really seen them. And so it's kind of one of those things that, and the reason this is kind of a fun bet, if you do want to go with NiP, is that you would look at them and you would say, they've had so much time because everybody else just played Katowice, including Eternal Fire. And so Eternal Fire is going to be just playing the way they did probably at Katowice, and NiP is a team that's a bigger mystery. And so I feel like a team with, I hate to use the term firepower because no one on this team is actually that sick anymore. Like you have a couple guys that are like, just like you have to pray to the high heavens that they can roll it back in some way. So I hate to say that, but it's just like they are okay. And the thing is that I think that they're going to have a very strong game plan going into this one. So that's why it's kind of juicy here. That I wish. Yeah, I feel like it's in a weird way, it is kind of juicy to just get a weird upset in this kind of matchup.
Yeah, basically, here's the thing. If this was closer to like a 50-50 one, say it was like, I don't know, 1.6 for Eternal Fire, and then NiP was like 1.9 or so, I would say then go with Eternal Fire, they're the better team. But
Yeah.
when the odds are that crazy for a BO1, like, you could easily see, well, I mean, they're just so high, 2.7, we have to do this one. So I'm going to treat it as if it is an under. I'm going to respect that, though, and I'm going to do sort of like a half-size bet. So I'll do 450 instead of like thousands, what we usually do for the max bet at the moment. So we'll do a half bet for that one. There's one we're going to do. And then The other ones we have is then, even though, again, what we wanted to do is we wanted to pick out one that are the more unknown names that you can bet on, though. So this is the one you picked out, Maui, which is AMKAL against Enterprise. AMKAL is the big favourite at 1.3. Enterprise is 3.2. Obviously, these are teams people will not be familiar with the names. Why do you think AMKAL's good to win this one potentially?
Well, AMKAL as a team has just, I mean, I've actually watched some of their open and closed qualifier games leading up to this one, and I feel like if people looked at the names on paper, they would recognize a handful of them, like Forrester, Nickelback, and Crad.
Oh, right. So these are all Entropic people. Yeah, sure.
Exactly.
Right.
They have a very strong core, 3 players. They were Entropic, 1 win. They're guys that have actually played at majors. Like if you really think about like way back up to like I think Forrester was on that Dream Eaters team that had that weird upset victory against like NRG in like 2019 or something like that. There's Entropic themselves were like a really solid top 15 team for a while.
Yep.
And so the pieces that are now surrounding them in the new guys, Travis and Icy, it actually is kind of interesting. Like Icy's been their best guy in a lot of those matchups that they've played lately. So if you kind of have this pretty solid and respectable core in Forrester, Nickelback, and Crad, and they've supposedly only picked up a player that's supposed to be stronger. I mean, like that's their opper too. So I feel like that's just a good recipe for me. Whereas on the other hand, Enterprise, I have seen some of their open qualifier stuff, and they're barely beating teams that I just felt like. I mean, I didn't even know who some of the people they were playing were. Like, okay, here's a matchup, for example. They played a team called Johnny Speeds, and they beat them 13-9 on Ancient, and it was like this is a team. I mean, the only name you would probably know from this roster is Draken, but like they're not winning in convincing fashion to even get here. Whereas on the other hand, for me, AMKAL, they beat Astralis, for example, in a BO3. So I feel like just the results themselves, and even if you just kind of do like the 1-to-1 test, both of these teams have played some of the same rosters overall, and AMKAL is just beating them more convincingly.
Right, normally that is still kind of low odds for the favourite for me. But being as we want to bet on some games here, I'll say we'll make this one. We just won't do a full-size bet. We'll do like a baby bet, since I don't know the teams that well. But we'll say we'll take the favourite. We'll take AMKAL. So I think for this one, I'll do we'll say 200. How about that? We'll do a little 200. I think that's reasonable. Then after that, we've got 2 left. So obviously this is an interesting one right out the gate, which is Team Falcons against 3D Max. So Falcons, unsurprising, I mean, they've just come off a semi-final run at kind of are a huge favourite at 1.361, whereas 3D Max is down at 2.981. So this is the one where you wanted to do it as the over-under, right? That was the angle we were going to take on this one. Because if we go on the over-under, you'll see here, it's set at 21.5. So it's basically 13.9 or whatever, right?
13. Well, 13.8. If it's 13.9 or over, or like if it's closer than that, then you hit the over. If
so we're going for the over though, because you're like essentially what your premise here is. It's not that you think that they will necessarily be an upset from 3D Max, but they're capable of getting it this minute. They can make it a messy game, basically.
Yes. To just kind of give some background, this is again a team that I was watching in the closed and open qualifiers, and Maka, Exercise, Joko, Haji, Lucky. I mean, you even just hear those names on paper, and you would have maybe thought
everyone knows some French players, yeah.
Yeah, that could have been a top 20, 25 team. They're currently ranked 30th in the world. And I do feel like with Falcons are in a weird position where they are improving every single game, but I feel like they also just have the knack. They have a knack for letting games get so much closer than they probably should.
Sure.
Like, everybody just watched that end series they just played, and that nuke game was not supposed to be that close. Like Falcons probably should have handled them a little bit easier, but they just have these little mix ups. They have they mess up. They just basically like sometimes lose track of what each other is doing on the map. You can just tell the team chemistry isn't quite there yet. Whereas on the other hand, 3D Max, when I was watching them, let me see some of the results they have. They've beaten Fnatic recently. They beat Endpoint. When they played, they've lost a few to like some decent teams, but I feel like they've been pretty good against tier 2 opposition in general. And I think like player quality, this is another one of those teams where for some reason on these kind of games, I'm putting a little bit of stock into teams that were kind of messing around in tier 2 online CS and with decent results, as opposed to the teams that are just coming fresh out of Katowice just because they're going to have less time to prepare, where the online teams are just ones that have always just done a little bit better than expected because their full focus is this event and they're trying to ramp up exactly into it. Whereas Falcons probably had a run that actually made them play a little bit more stage or like land CS than they would have expected. They probably thought they would have had more time to practice, and now I would imagine that they're just going to take like a couple days off after Katowice before the RMR, and then basically you're coming into this to the RMR itself with very little practice itself.
Like, the key thing for me here is if you are the guys from 3D Max, you have so much good material from a recent LAN to actually look at. Meanwhile, like you say, the results from 3D Max are going to be online games. Like, that already is going to make them like not as useful information. And also, quite frankly, it's just a lot easier to break down a top professional team that does things from the same way from a playbook. I wouldn't be surprised if 3D Max play a little bit loosey-goosey. There's some like former top pros or people who just play and probably wait to see if they qualify. And then lastly, I'll just throw this in there. The reason why I do think it's plausible this could be a messy game is because probably the biggest problem for Falcons right now is just raw firepower. Like, people will know it wasn't until the end of Katowice that some players really got rolling. And then obviously it was the kind of the stage matches that brought them up. This is just going to be a tournament game. I'll also throw in there as well, I actually think, notice I didn't say that they lack firepower, because I actually think their main problem, Maui, is that the whole Boros factor means they definitely have enough firepower. It just doesn't necessarily connect to the system, because when I watched that guy play, mate, this is why I do think there's a massive chance here for Snappy and for Lars, Robel and Zonic to make themselves look like geniuses if they can do something with this guy, because anytime you watch him and the camera's on him, mate, he has really good mechanics. Like, his actual ability to win gunfights is really good. His problem is he just doesn't look like a player who knows when to take the fights, or sometimes, quite frankly, it looked like, I don't know what their comms are like, but I just saw on camera at Katowice, sometimes Snappy looked like he was just mad at that one guy. Like that's the guy, why didn't you peek with me, or why didn't you help me? That was the area. So I also feel like if you add all this together, mate, there's a world where this becomes like a messy game and it's back and forth. Absolutely, this could go all the rounds, right? Remember, on this one, it doesn't matter if we win or lose. We just need the game to get to like 13-9. That's all we need. It doesn't have to be the winner. So I'm actually quite comfortable. That, by the way, this is why we did it for this particular game, because I don't actually think 3D Max will do the upset. But I thought this is it's a more plausible angle that they just play a great game. So yeah, and of all the big names, Falcons were the ones that could lose. Do the over. And we'll say for this one, I actually like the odds 1.8. We'll do like a 3/4 size bet, I think, for this one. So we'll do, say 750 for that. 750. I think that's a pretty decent one. And then the last one is going to be BetBoom Fnatic. I actually think this is easily the juiciest one on the whole thing here, because what's mad is both teams obviously similar odds. I actually think right now, the fact that Fnatic's even the favourite, I don't even know if that's accurate. Like, if you think right now these two teams, this could go anywhere. So BetBoom is at 1.942, and then we have Fnatic at 1.801. What are you feeling on this one? What are your thoughts?
This one's really tough, actually. I would actually, in terms of footage lately, I have seen a little bit of Fnatic from some of the qualifiers, but I've actually seen much more BetBoom. BetBoom looked... You
were feeling really BetBoom in general, right? In the last year?
BetBoom I liked at the end of last year, but they looked really bad at Katowice. They got 13-1'd by Eternal Fire, and I think the one round they won might have been a pistol round, actually. So I think they were really out of their element there. But the thing is with BetBoom, they just went back into the online meat grinder. They just played against Namiga and Forza. They actually lost both of those though in close qualies. I just feel like with Fnatic, they've been changing up their roster so much, and I don't really know what the baseline quality of players is. And I think the thing is that BetBoom are coming into this event with just more stability overall, whereas the team, so the players on Fnatic three of them have only been there for 2 months, and so I'm not really sold on that project yet. And the thing is that these odds actually have BetBoom as the underdogs, and that's what's surprising to me. That's why I would go for BetBoom for sure in this one, because I just haven't seen the proof of concept yet necessarily for Fnatic, and I do know where things come from for BetBoom. The one thing that was like really worrying about BetBoom when watching them at Katowice is one, the lack of quality of just like they couldn't handle other teams' openers necessarily. That was like really weird and concerning when they have people that you would think are pretty explosive in the early round, like Zorte and Chiron, for example. But the thing is, I feel like it shouldn't be the hardest fixes. Like I also just feel like if I'm Innershine there, I feel like some of the ways that you could improve your game, it's very simple. You just kind of steal a couple more setups from other teams and things. So I would go with BetBoom here. I feel like also firepower wise, I think that they to me, I've seen much more from a lot of the people on their team now than I have from the Fnatic guys, except for Crims, obviously.
I actually love this. I actually love the idea we can get them essentially as an underdog, when I actually think if you reverse the odds, I'd probably still say take BetBoom. I think this is the most known quantity. And the difference is, even when they play badly, you look at their roster and you can easily conceive of a world where this is a way better roster than, like, this lineup on paper for BetBoom could be a bagger. Like, spoiler, even though we are going to pick them now in this matchup to win, I actually will just tease this into our other shows, which I will just say, which is that whole angle where you did that thing partly for the memes of, like, apologising to Navani. That will end badly, mate, because the joke is, if you look at the team he has now, surely you should be not doing everything with this lineup. Like, mate, this lineup, if I just renamed this lineup Team Spirit, wouldn't you all be mega hyped? Like, wouldn't you all be like, holy moly, get that to a land, that could be top 10 in the world. It's just because no one knows the name BetBoom, and it has all that weird stuff with all that tournament last year. So I actually think, in general, BetBoom should be way better than Fnatic's lineup. Like, look, there's a world where the Fnatic lineup, if everything comes together, could be all right. But even then, I'll just throw this out there. Even though people made that whole thing about Brolan doesn't want to speak English, which now that has even been called into question by Check's Notes, Brolan. But okay, that was, because if anyone went to look, that was technically someone from Fnatic, I believe, who said that. It was never actually Brolan who did say that. I think it might even have been called in like an offhand comment in an interview or something. And then the other thing is, it was also inferred that like Crims might not be the biggest fan of like multinational teams. Well, now he's got two ooh la la Frenchmen on his team, a guy from fucking Germany, and then a guy from like, I don't know what country, is that Slovenia or something? Like, give me a break, mate.
Slovakia.
Like, there you go. The joke is, he wouldn't guess that either, even from seeing the flag, and he met the guy. So, quite frankly, this looks like such a cynical min-max on Fnatic's side. Like, until I've seen them do something, I'm not going to put any faith in this team. This name value is carrying. The name Fnatic is what's carrying this one, I think.
Just for the lulz here, like, I felt like the whole Brolin and Crims angle of not wanting to do international teams was literally them saying, we don't want to play with Smooya.
I still don't get how that has been missed. Like, the joke was, they almost were saying, we don't like to play with the English instead of in English, I always thought. Because, as you say, I noticed they immediately stayed international, and Crims had no problem at all, but he was like, you know what, let's roll through to like major playoffs and stuff. Like, this is awesome. Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, that was always such a, why people took that one so seriously, I'll never know. So for this one, I think we're just going to go, we're just going to go BetBoom side on this one. I think it's an easy one. We're just going to do a full bet for this guy. Look, actually, it's a little bit more. Maybe I'll do a 3/4. It is a BO1 at the end of the day. We'll do a 3/4 bet for that one. So there you go. As if to add a little bit of drama and juice, we actually picked Nafani to win a game at an RMR. And you know what? He doesn't even have Shiro and AMKAL on his team. So maybe we've reformed after all. Maybe that. No, actually, the joke is we just believe in Fnatic even less. That's exactly. Like, if anything, the statement's the other way around. It's more emphatic the other way. Yeah, I agree. Right. There is one more thing to mention, which is, as I said, when you go on to that promotions page and you can do the red envelope one that I mentioned before, they also have another one, which is they have this one here, which is their 777 bonus. Now, this is one where it's one of those like first time deposit bonuses, but this is an excellent one to use, better than the classic one they run, because basically it's a 200% first time deposit bonus capped at 200 USDT or equivalent. Minimum first deposit has to be at least 10 USDT. So essentially it's just a way, if you put in 200 USDT, you get 200 USDT. Oh, let me think. Actually, that would be if you put 100 in, you get 200. Yes, that's right. It's 100% basically. So yeah, check that one out. Obviously, as usual, what you do there is you have to go apply the bonus, as you can see on the side there. Again, they have the whole thing there. You're going to select the crypto, do it all right. If you ever have any questions about this, by the way, it seems unclear what I'm saying, the easiest thing is always just click the customer support button on the website and someone will actually basically answer your question and tell you. Or if you're on their Discord, contact the mod mail. They will also hook you up. So that's another bonus that you can do. Me and Maui will be back for RMR Group B with the first round matchups of those.